Okay, so I wanted to create this video and talk a little about one of my recent compositions. Um, so you can see from the title, it's called Fugue Fever, and indeed, this is a fugue. In fact, this is a J.S. Bach-inspired fugue. Um, I'm not claiming to be, say, at the level of J.S. Bach, although I aimed to emulate his technique and style and sounds. And still create an original work. I was inspired to do this a few weeks ago, and I had a lot of fun writing it. And the truth is, uh, I'd say, revered Bach since high school long ago when I was playing preludes and inventions and fugues. Say the classical influence has often shown in my compositions. I've always been attracted to the contrapuntal style, even though I've written a lot of music that is very, I'd say, contemporary and melody focused. But I've been attracted to the sort of um, multiple voice conversational style that we know as counterpoint and that Bach is considered sort of a preeminent master of. And then, of course, fugue embodies sort of the most maybe highly revered form of that, and perhaps the most complicated. And I didn't know that I would be writing Bach-like fugues, but when inspiration hits, I always go with it, and that's the inspiration that hit me a few weeks ago. So I ended up writing Fugue Fever. Quick story: my wife sort of named it because she noticed I was ensconced in this for hours over about a 4-day period, and she noticed I was visibly absent, and then she texted me the words Fugue Fever one day playfully, and I thought, well, that's exactly what this feels like. I mean, in a good way. But anyway, so we got this fugue. I just want to talk about it a little bit, and then I can play some of it. It's a 3-voice fugue, and if you're familiar with piano notation, you may notice all the numbers on there. That's the fingering that I've written in that is helping me to learn to play it. So anyway, I'll just start by sharing the subject. Here's the opening subject. It goes like this. That's our opening subject. I hope that that comes through. And so then it's immediately answered at the fifth so that you could say that is what? Is that the tenor part? And then it's answered by the soprano up here. You put them together, and in typical fugue fashion, they sort of start talking to each other, you could say, a conversation that is perpetually evolving of equals, very different than how most music is constructed, which is based around a melody and then a supportive accompaniment. This is a melody and then another melody that work together, and then a third melody, because it's a 3-voice fugue, and we end up with this. And that's about a page and a half of it. If you were following along, it goes on for 4 pages. And honestly, like I said, I'm still learning to play it. I was glad to get that far for you right now. And maybe, if you're familiar with Bach, or if you just classical music, or you're familiar with fugue, hopefully that rings a bell. As I said, I was consciously emulating or aiming to write music that could pass for something written in Bach's time or under the influence of Bach, maybe a sort of a protege or a student of Bach, which of course I consider myself. And it was a total delight to write this. It wasn't a conscious plan, although looking back, it makes sense that I always would have wanted to do this sort of thing, and I thought about it now and then. I did also write a fugue about a year and a half ago, but it was more of it had more of a contemporary feel, and I wasn't aiming for the voice leading practices of Baroque music, and here I was. So anyway, you can hear that we have the three voices. Hopefully you picked that up, and the bass comes in. Looks like measure 10, and the low subject. And I also wrote the sort of episodes in between subjects where things just, there's sort of this material that kind of winds up. It's maybe more, you could say loosely, kind of filler music in between subjects, starting at measure 13 or 14 here. We got this going in. That sort of thing is very common in Bach, in between occurrences of the subject. I even started to cascade the subject, where you have multiple occurrences of the subject at one time, also known as stretto. But later on, I do actually use stretto, combine subjects at the same time, multiple times. In fact, the ending is just, I go to town with it, with the multiple occurrences of the subject, just cascading to a lovely finish, or so I think. So I hope you found that interesting as I talked about my fugue.